Nice to see everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate people making time for this. This is our third town hall. And before we go any further, I really want to thank our staff, many, and actually probably most of whom really haven't had much of a vacation since this pandemic really started in March. So I just really want to take the chance to say thank you to all of them, not just for those who are really working in our buildings and kind of keeping things moving, but so many people who are also part of our first responders team. So that's our folks in the sheriff's office, our people with the health department, and all the different agencies that need to keep working during this pandemic. So, and that also includes our IT team, who have really been able to put a lot of people working remotely, keeping them safe and keeping our clients safe as well. So thank you so much to all of them. We are really happy tonight to have many experts on here and on the line to answer your questions. So we have received many questions already, but if other things occur to you, please do ask them through the chat, and that will go to our team, and then they will forward them along to us. And if we have time, we will get to them. So tonight, I'm really pleased to be joined by Robin O'Connor. She is our clerk, and she's extraordinarily busy right now as we move into election season, or we are actually fully into election season. Also, our executive director, Mark Pfister of the Lake County Health Department, is here. And he has been a mainstay through this entire process, and we are extremely grateful and fortunate to have Mark's expertise along with that of his team, keeping people safe and helping businesses and schools determine how they can keep their clients, their customers, and their staff safe. And also joined by my colleague, Paul Frank, who's from Highland Park. And he is, not only is he the chair of our Finance and Administrative Committee, but he also serves on our Finance and Administrative Special Committee on COVID-19 recovery. And that team has been extremely busy as well, helping us move through allocating the COVID-19 CARES Act funding that we received from the federal government. So many thanks to our delegation, and that's Congressman Brad Schneider, Congressman Underwood, certainly Congressman Sean Casten, and Senators Durbin and Duckworth. So without further ado, everybody has a lot of questions, and so I really want to get started right away. And Mark is always the star of our show on these. So I'm going to start off with Mark. And so my first question is, Mark, what is the current positivity rate and what has been the trend in recent weeks? And this has been asked by many people. Sometimes there's just a few, but also about if we show information by zip code, and where can people find that information, please?
Thank you, Chair Hart, and again, thank you for inviting me tonight. And I wanted to thank our Lake County residents for everything they've done to try and prevent the spread of COVID-19. So I know everyone is out there wearing your mask, you're watching your distance, and you're washing your hands. So really appreciate all of that. For Lake County, our positivity rate is actually at 4.5%. And just a reminder for our viewers that positivity rate is the number of people that test positive divided by the number of people that were tested. So right now, Lake County is sitting at 4.5%. But we also look at the statistic for Region 9, which is both McHenry County and Lake County. And so that positivity rate is at 5%. We want to stay below 8%. If we get to 8%, then we may have to roll some things back, and we certainly don't want to do that. And just another update is that we're now having in Lake County, we've had 17,171 cases, and unfortunately 473 deaths. So we do want to remember those that have unfortunately succumbed to COVID-19, and is something that we still desire to prevent. And we can go to our Data Hub website, as the chair asked her question, is where could people find this data? You can go to our Data Hub, and then if you go under school metrics, you can actually see the positivity rate and the incidence rate by 7-day rolling average on our Data Hub. So you can just look for it under school metrics.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And so the zip code information is also on there, Mark? Perfect.
That is correct, Jerry. If they just go to the data hub and then they go to our school metrics page, which will be in the chat box, you can see the dashboard, and then you'll just scroll down and see the zip code level. You just need to select one zip code and then just check one box and make sure there's just one box checked.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And viewers may see this. We don't as panelists, but I do think our team is working in the background and putting some links up there so that people can find it. So thank you so much. My next question is for Paul Frank, who, like I said, had been working on this COVID-19 Special Recovery Committee and helping to distribute the $121 million in CARES Act funding that we've gotten. And so Paul, can you tell us a little bit about the CARES Act monies that were received and particularly about assistance for small businesses? And this was asked by Charlene Berger, Joanna Rolak, and some others.
Thank you, Chair Hart. I appreciate the question. I'm going to give a brief overview of what Lake County and the board has done regarding CARES Act funding that the Congress has given to us. I'm not going to get to the slide just yet, but thank you for that, Alex. So essentially what happened, I think most folks are aware that the Congress put money in the hands of counties and large cities across the country to deal with the pandemic and the economic fallout late last spring. However, we didn't quite have guidelines on how to spend the funds. Again, $121 million to Lake County. The Treasury Department issued several versions of guidance. Chair Hart appointed me to chair the special committee where we would make recommendations to the board with input from our county administration and leadership. So what we did at the very onset was start to get a handle on what are the areas of need, what do we want to spend funding on, and so we created basically 5 buckets. Again, the criteria from the U.S. Department of Treasury changed several times since the end of May, as most recently as early this month. So some of those changes allowed us to spend more money reimbursing municipalities for their COVID-related expenses, allowing us to pay first responders and police departments and the health department for their COVID-related expenses. So those changes were really helpful very late in the process. But the other categories, as you mentioned, Chair Hart, is we created a first time ever small business assistance grant program. I'm sure many people have heard about the PPP loans came from the federal government that businesses, larger businesses could access through their banking institutions. And those, were funded in trillions of dollars in terms of billions of dollars from the federal government. What we decided to do is try and find a way to support small businesses in Lake County that weren't able to access PPP or other types of programs. And there still is funding available at the state level for small business programs. And I believe some of that PPP funding was still available as recently as late in the summer. So we initially allocated $10 million to a small business assistance grant program. And then the special committee and the board and the finance committee decided to increase that. We were, again, estimating the need. We doubled that to $20 million, even before the program had been created. We worked with Lake County Partners, which is a business development support organization here in Lake County, and they helped process and publicize and distribute the information about the grant applications. And so I do have here someplace just a quick overview on how many applications we got. And it was about almost 2,000, about 1,884 applications were received. And about 65% of them were deemed as eligible. Well, some of the main reasons that applications for small business grants were deemed not eligible because, frankly, we received some applications from businesses that are not in the state of Illinois. There are many Lake counties across the country, but we weren't going to give some of the Lake County, Illinois funding to those businesses. So businesses not located in Illinois were deemed not eligible. So there were some duplicate applications. And then based on the other criteria that were applied to the program, some other businesses were deemed as not eligible. And the first round of checks went out late August. There are still a few hundred applications that are in the final steps of review. At the end of the day, our team anticipates we will have about, like I said, about 1,100 businesses deemed eligible that will be qualifying for almost $17 million in support grants. And again, these are grants. These are not loans. They're not required to be repaid. And it's our hope that they will go a long way to help small businesses in Lake County sustain and survive through this recession that we're in. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, and I really appreciate the work of you and your team and really the entire board. You know, there's 5 people that serve on that committee, and oftentimes we have all 21 board members in attendance to that because I think everybody cares really deeply about what's happening in their communities, and everybody wants to make sure that the residents are really getting the help that they need, and that's rental assistance, food assistance, utility assistance, and helping our small businesses. So thank you so much, Paul, for taking the lead on that extremely important committee. My next question is for Clerk O'Connor. Let's see, Jody Oskalinis, I apologize if I didn't pronounce that correctly, but her question is, can we vote in person this year? And if so, how are you keeping people safe and socially distant?
Well, welcome to election season. Quite a world that we are in right now. And we just want to confirm to you that Lake County is keeping everyone safe. We're not only looking at our voters to keep them safe, we're looking at our judges, and we also have a lot of workers who are working at our sites. So we strive and we work very hard to keep everyone safe. The question about safety ranges from being an election judge, and we're providing them all the necessary equipment that they need, including sneeze guards, and that will also keep voters safe. We're abiding by the guidelines of our health standards, safe distancing, and we're encouraging everyone to wear a mask. So we are following all of the standards that have been given to us. And here's some other things that I thought you might find interesting. So if you vote in person, whether that's early voting or voting on the day, we were the ones that brought up the phrase of bringing your own pen. So BYOP, bring your own pen. Little things like this that are common sense are what we do here in Lake County. So if you bring your own blue and black pen, you don't have to use ours. But if you do, we will clean it and make sure that it is ready for you to use. And even if you come to an early voting site and you're using what we call our express votes, there is what we just basically call them paper straws, but a stylus for you to use so you do not have to even touch the keys. We have ways of taking, instead of having a sleeve, which most people are accustomed to, we're using paper so that we're environmentally correct. We like to strive to keep Lake County in that mainstream of being very careful with the environment. So from walking into a voting site to leaving, each step we have carefully managed to keep our voters safe.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Robin. Okay, turning back to Mark, Paulette Peters would like to know, will you be recommending that door-to-door trick-or-treating be canceled this year?
That is a great question. And in fact, I think that's the #1 question we've been getting for about the last month is what's going to happen with Halloween. So perfect timing for today's town hall is that actually IDPH came out with Halloween guidance. We are not going to recommend canceling going door to door, but I think there are practical ways and more safe ways to go trick-or-treating. So if you look at that guidance, one of the suggestions is that people, not go to the door and give candy to the children that are going around, but actually they have a table out there with a bowl so that the kids can take their own candy. And then we also want to make sure that if people are traveling around the neighborhood, that you're not going in big groups with other families, is that you're just going around with your family so that way, and then you're spacing the different families out. So it won't be canceled this year, but there are guidelines for the way to do this the most safely. And so just finding those ways, and we will be sharing on our website the IDPH guidance as well as the CDC guidance.
Perfect. Thank you. I live in Lake Bluff, and That's one of our biggest holidays in Lake Bluff is Halloween. So I'm happy to hear that. This is from Kathy Prince. Oh, pardon me. This is, Betty Brown. Due to COVID-19, a lot of people are homeless. What's going to be done about helping these people? And I'm hopeful that Cassandra Torstensen is on the call, or somebody from our county administrator's office who can really speak to the great work that we're doing in helping people who are experiencing homelessness right now.
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to address homelessness. So people are experiencing homelessness in Lake County, and they are being sheltered in hotels and also in congregate shelters throughout the county. Congregate sites are currently serving less people so that there is space to adhere to the social distancing requirements. But the county has also supported community providers by helping to provide funding to be able to keep people in non-congregate shelters such as hotels, and also to be able to help expand their homelessness housing opportunities across the county.
Perfect, thank you. And Sandra, just to follow up, so some people were being housed in maybe some motels and things like that. Is that something that we can expect to be continued through the fall and winter?
We do intend to continue to work with our homelessness providers, such as PADS and A Safe Place, to continue to help them to shelter their individuals in non-congregate as much as possible. And in the instances where some of our providers are sheltering them in congregate shelters, they are trying to have smaller volume of people, keeping family units together and trying to still adhere to that social distancing as much as possible.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I am going to go back to Paul. And this is another one about small businesses. So if somebody had submitted an application and they haven't heard back, what should they do? And is there still money to be given out? You spoke a little bit about that, but if somebody's been denied, is there an opportunity for them?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Chair Hart, I think I'm going to have to look into my inbox to bring up the email address, or maybe someone from the administration office has the email. But there is an email address that's been set up from our team and from Lake County partners where applicants can check on the status of their applications. To be quite honest, we did this in such an expedited fashion with our county administration team that's never done anything like this before. It's not part of their normal duties. And in an effort to get the funding out the door and create the program and get the applications in, we did it quite quickly, remarkably, and hopefully successfully. But you know, being able to create that status checkup, like many of us have with other financial institutions, or even that the clerk's office has with mail-in ballots, to be able to log in and say, what's the status of my application? We just didn't have the time or the resources to build that sort of functionality. So at the very least, we now do have an email address that applicants can email and to find out the status of their application. And I think, like I indicated before, many of those who have been awarded have received some notice, and many of the checks have been issued and gone out the door already, and many still have not. So applicants can, like I said, email an inquiry. We don't have any other functionality in terms of being able to find out, just because of the way that we were able to build this so quickly.
Okay, thank you.
There you go.
Sorry, my
Okay,
internet.
I got you.
Okay, my internet is unstable. We're having some technical difficulties earlier. So one question that we're getting through that I just heard from our communications team is people are wondering when they can expect to receive their ballots. So I'm going to ask Clerk O'Connor that question.
That is the hot question that we are getting daily on the phones. Just to give you a little background to understand, I think a lot of people who are doing vote by mail ballots, in 2018, we received 34,000 vote by mail ballots for that election. For the recent, our first send-off, our first production of vote by mail ballots, we sent 126,000. So you can see that that has incredibly increased the number from the 2018 election. So here's the update. The 126,000 ballots went into production on Thursday. That doesn't mean they were mailed on Thursday. Some may have been mailed. That just means that they were taken to a special facility, a printer who specializes in not only in printing, but inserting them in the envelope. There is a whole system that needs to go through into this process. We are expecting that most people should be receiving their ballots by the end of this week or early next week. If you have not received them by the end of next week, give us a call. Do understand that when we put them, when we send our envelopes and they go to Gurnee, that is just one collection site. Then that goes to a more distributing post office, and then that is another 3 to 5 days. So they are in process now, and we are hoping that everyone will receive them by early next week.
Perfect, thank you. And as a follow-up question, and we got this question from a number of people. So essentially, they've ordered mail-in ballots, expecting to get it. They're anxious to receive it, but maybe they don't want to mail it in, right? They want to come in on, what do they do? What can you fill people in on that process, please?
Right. What's very exciting about this election, through the governor's order, we were allowed to go ahead and present options. So if you choose to have a vote by mail ballot and you don't want to mail it, which is fine, that is your option, we are offering 2 different drop-off boxes. We will be offering 4 external boxes, which are boxes that are going to be outside. They are lit for 24/7. They will have a security camera on them, and they are very well protected. And those are going to be at our branch courts in Lake County. Then we will have 17 other vote by mail drop-off boxes, and those are going to be internal boxes. And those boxes will be at every early voting site. The reason we selected those to be at an early voting site is that we want them to be under the watchful eye of judges. Everything we do involves judges and involves security. We want things to be secure and safe.
Perfect, thank you very much. Okay, next question is going to be for Mark. And this is a school question from Elwin Bonnert, Celine Mehta, Andy Hansen, Ayushi Dalakia, and it is, how are in-person Lake County schools dealing with the new precautions needed to remain open? And sort of in general, I think, Mark, how are you working with sort of the different school districts? What's required for them to stay open? I have heard a couple people say personally, well, if somebody sneezes in the classroom, everybody's got to, evacuate the classroom. What does that look like?
Yeah, I think this is another great question, and certainly something that we've been working with our school districts for months on now. But I just want to say that our school superintendents and our teams out at our school districts have been doing just a phenomenal job. I mean, it's not an easy task of what they have to do. And there's a lot of guidelines that they must follow and assure that they're protecting not only the students, but also their staff. And so this is something that we've been working on, and every Wednesday morning, the health department meets with the superintendents, and at almost every day, we're talking with various superintendents about different questions. And so I think the number one issue has been in the schools is really just keeping, the students separated. And so the schools have done a great job by changing different hours and making sure that students aren't passing the hall, that they're not eating, together. So there's been a lot of work on social distancing and to make sure that they're doing something called cohorting. They're trying to keep the students in cohorts or groups so that if there is somebody that is ill, the whole school doesn't be exposed to that. So definitely what we know is that community spread is still happening. And where that community spread is happening in the school children, it has tended to be outside of the schools, and it's happening in social gatherings or sports activities. One of the big concerns that we still have is that we have a lot of traveling sports teams that are traveling out of state, and you have students that are riding in vehicles together, maybe not masked, maybe not appropriately social distanced. And so then they're being exposed to other students in other states that may have higher rates of incidence of COVID-19. So we just continue to ask families to be very cautious for the sake of safety in our schools. So our goal is try and get everybody back as soon as possible, but we're still in a pandemic. And so we need to make sure everybody's following the 3 Ws.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize if I missed it, but is it really true if somebody's in a classroom and somebody sneezes, what happens?
No, so again, I think this is where it comes down to, and I'll probably talk a little bit later about just social distancing, and that's 6 feet. So what we're really looking at is that who is a close contact of somebody for 15 minutes or more. So just a sneeze is not going to require the class to be cleaned or moving everybody out. But again, this is where certainly we want people and parents really to self-certify that their students are well before they come to school. So that's the real goal, is just to make sure that people are not showing up with symptoms.
Right, perfect. I had heard that one myself and I said, you know, I don't think that's right, because I can see kids really having a lot of fun with that one, right? Everybody having to leave the classroom. Okay, here is one for Paul. Are there any special resources offered by the county to individual communities? And that's by John Schaller. And I'm going to guess that that's as far as resources in terms of money that's offered to maybe some of the municipalities and things like that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Hart. Alex, if we could maybe just pull up those 2 slides real quickly. Again, sort of an overview of what we've done on the CARES Act Special Committee. One of the biggest things that the municipalities and the communities and community services we've been looking at is how and what's the best way to get funding out the door to these organizations. You know, we have municipalities who have done a lot in terms of human services. We decided early on the most urgent needs, before we even looked at the small business program or these other things, the most urgent critical needs for the human needs. So we funded right at the top assistance for food banks, for food and rental assistance and utilities and housing assistance. A lot of that went through existing food support and housing support organizations. A lot of that went to the township organizations across Lake County. I believe there's 18 townships in Lake County, and a lot of those funding mechanisms were already in place to support housing, food assistance, and utilities. And so this is an overview of what the county did. If you can see the slide before you in terms of the general categories. But the question is a good one. And yes, we were really focused right at the beginning of what's the most urgent critical need. And so we did this sort of, like we said, an estimated amount for food and housing and rental assistance right at the top. Of course, public health in the pandemic, we had to look at funding for stockpiles of PPE and support the health department's efforts. And then also you see a large chunk at the bottom that's for the municipalities, local government, and some of that also is for public health at the county level, at the health department. And so the municipalities were heavily involved, and to this day, it's not just that revenue is down for local governments, it's that our expenditures are high. We're doing things that we've never had to do before in terms of supporting small businesses that are opening up outside, creating additional spaces, creating space between people at and delivering our services, delivering local government services in a different way than we've done before. And so a lot of that funding is going to make its way to the municipalities and has made its way to the municipalities. And we hope that will go a long way to support those services that are needed.
Perfect, thank you. And one of the things that I really appreciated about the special committee was really taking time to evaluate where the needs were. So our staff took the time to get a good understanding of what was happening around the country. That special committee took the time to really discuss what we wanted to do as a county, and what came back was really, hey, we want to make sure that these dollars are going to places in need. We're not going to do it right off the bat like there's this many people here and this many people there. You want to talk about that, Paul?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd like to just follow up and echo that. And that is, you know, the special committee is just 5 members. It's myself, Jessica Volicic, Steve Carlson, Linda Peterson, and Jennifer Clark. And, the whole board participated in the conversation. As elected board members, we all hear things in our communities from residents, neighbors, community organizations. So we all bring some of that feedback to the conversation. But it was a real partnership in terms of trying to prioritize, analyze the level of need, because our professional staff at Lake County is so tied into supporting people across the county and what the needs are, that we would bring an idea in and they would say, listen, this is maybe the best way to do it. And let me make some calls. Let me look into this. It was really, again, an incredible amount of work that was done in a short period of time. And hopefully those funds have gone a long way to help people in need.
Yes, thank you. Thanks a lot, Paul. Okay, this is for Clerk O'Connor. And I know she knows the answer to this one. This is from Diane Byer. I submitted a form to receive a ballot from Lake County, but then received a letter from the Secretary of State saying I did not submit for a ballot. Please explain what happened.
Okay. All right. So the letter that you received, the recent letter, was from the Secretary of State. And that was, again, through the governor's orders, that it was sent through the Secretary of State. It was not sent through our office. And in an early time in September, what they did was they asked for the data that we had of people that we've already registered within our system. That doesn't mean that we registered everyone, put everyone in our system at that time. And do remember, we were receiving about like 100,000. So there was a great amount of number. So we did eventually, of course, catch up. I mean, that's our goal, and we did actually catch up, and we're totally in process. But that between system is when they sent the letter. So many individuals were not captured at their first data quest. And so that is where a lot of the mix-up came, is that people received a letter saying that we had not received their application, and we did. So I'm going to also give you another, another email. So if you go to what we call lakevoterpower.info, it's very important to remember. I'm going to say it again. It's lakevoterpower.info. And if you go to that, you will be able, and you put in a little bit of your personal information, it will give you ballot tracking and a lot of information that really is meant for just you about your ballot. And so I encourage people to go ahead and experiment, go on that, and you will be able to track your ballot. If you do that now, you will see that it will say that your ballots have been sent and the application has been received.
Perfect. Thank you. Kathy Prince had a quick question that I can answer pretty quickly. Are Lake County board members open to the public, and are you meeting in person now? We do not meet in person. We meet via Zoom. We do have executive sessions, and those must be in person, or we choose to do those in person. And so if anybody wants to watch any of our meetings, we, since early 2019, we do film all of our committee meetings. And so those could be watched if you go to lakecountyil.gov and you look under our agendas, you can go back and see any of those meetings. And then our full county board meetings, which occur monthly, those have been filmed for quite some time. So, but they're always open to the public, and people can always submit public comment for things that are either on or off the agenda. So hopefully that helps. So thank you. Okay, I'm going to go back to Mark. There's a lot of questions, Mark, about Jesse Oaks. And one of the ones that I had seen come across was help us understand why people were playing volleyball. So if you can just give a little background on that, please.
Yeah, I think in Lake County, I mean, there's a lot of sports activities that are going on, for various reasons. In this case, the situation is that we had 14 confirmed cases that were linked to Jesse Oaks. And so what we're doing right now is we're investigating. Our contact tracers are hard at work investigating to determine how many cases that we may have that are related to that facility, but also to other facilities where people may have been playing volleyball, on different teams. So this is something that we're continuing to investigate. And as we learn more, we'll definitely keep the public informed.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Which leads me to another question from Cindy Borzik, I hope I pronounced that correctly. How is contact tracing going? I've been hearing that there is sometimes not as much cooperation by the public.
Yeah, another great question. And so right now, the good news is we got about a $5 million grant from the Illinois Department of Public Health. We've hired 80% of the individuals that are case investigators and contact tracers. We anticipate that we'll be fully staffed in the next month. We've hired a very talented team. They've been doing a great job doing thorough investigations of our outbreaks, and they're really making a difference. But I think sometimes with case investigators and contact tracers, that sometimes are met by hesitation when we call the public, and individuals don't want to necessarily share information about their loved ones, about their children. But I think this is something that we really want to tell the public, is that it's requisite that you share information with us. We will not use your name. We will not say who your kids were in contact with or that your kid was the case. But what we need to do is find out who those contacts are. And then when we call the contacts, that we say that you may have been exposed to somebody that is COVID-19, but we don't give up the information as to who they were exposed to. So we make multiple attempts to reach out, and we really ask those people that are a case, first of all, are they feeling better? Are they feeling well? Because that's number one, is we want to make sure that they're doing well and are recovering. And then we want to make sure that they're not exposing other people in the households. And then we're working with them to potentially move other people out of the household into alternate housing if they can't appropriately social distance. So it's a difficult conversation, but it's really requisite that people share with the health department this information. We keep all your information safe. We do not share your information. So please continue to talk with us if you happen to get a call from the Lake County Health Department.
Perfect. Thank you so much. This one I'm going to go back to Clerk O'Connor. If there are any changes to a voting site, and this is from Amanda McDonough, if there are any changes to a voting site, how will that be communicated to residents?
We just recently sent out notices to individuals that do have site changes. So we are by statute supposed to send out information when there ever is a site change. We did not have as many site changes as probably one would think. We have 121 voting sites and we had 8 changes. That is, remarkable. And the 8 changes that we did have were definitely in line, and we totally understand them. We have one early voting site change, and then we've added an early voting site change. We added the Lake County Fairgrounds, and we encourage everyone to go to that if they would like to try the Lake County Fairgrounds. It is a universal site, and the beauty of the Lake County Fairgrounds is that it is big, and we're allowed to space everyone out. It is a wonderful site, and we're very, very grateful to the Lake County Fairgrounds staff for allowing us and serving us in this manner. I do want to add one more just quick thing, because I know I had talked about the letter from the Secretary of State. I want to let people know there will be another letter out early in October. And I'm just letting the public know that, because it will once again address, if you have not received, we have not received your application. And we understand that there are individuals who do not want to vote by mail and want to vote in person. So we apologize to those individuals who are receiving the letter that have chosen to vote in person, but this is not sent from our office. This is sent from Secretary of State.
Perfect, thank you. I have a couple of questions that's come in about daycare, and we've had a lot of conversation both within the county, and I heard about it really statewide, about how are we helping people get back to work with childcare. So this one is from Morella Real. I am a daycare provider serving 90% low-income families. What resources are available that can help my families and their children? I do know that there was a state program put out by the governor. Is maybe Cassandra or one of our, anybody from the county administrator's office be able to answer that, or let them know where they can go to find out more information, please?
Yes, hello. So there was a state program that provided some assistance to daycare providers to be able to offset some of the costs that they're experiencing because of COVID. So that would be one option for daycare providers to be able to look and see if there's still funding opportunities available through the state. Through the county, we will be working with our park districts and park departments across the county to be able to help provide funding to them to also be able to continue providing e-learning and childcare services through park districts and park departments. So that program is a brand new program that we're currently launching and working through. So that one hasn't started, but do work with your park departments and park districts to see if they have any openings available to be able to help families in the area. And I do know some of the park departments and park districts do have scholarship programs available as well to families that are in need.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go back to Mark. There's a lot of questions about COVID-19 testing from, let's see, John Lahr and Sharon, Ramon, Somya, Sinya. Is there COVID-19 testing in the Cuba, Ela Township areas? And can people get tested, and a Lake County resident get tested outside of Lake County if they sort of live sort of on the edges? And then what do we know, Mark, about the state testing? Do we know if it'll remain open in the fall and winter?
Great questions tonight, Chair. This is wonderful. So yes, there are many private providers that have testing available. Some of those providers do require you to have symptoms, so not everybody is testing asymptomatic and symptomatic. So you can go on a link that is out there on where you can find testing centers if you want to do that, or you can just call your provider and ask them if they do the testing. For those in Cuba Ela Township, is that there is a state-run site that's available in Arlington Heights. There's also the state-run site in Waukegan. And so both of those sites are going to be open throughout the winter because frankly, without having testing, contact tracing is not as valuable. So I think this is something that the state is doing. They're figuring out how to winterize the tents. They may change the process a little bit because of snow, but those will remain open. Additionally, if we find a need, we have brought in mobile testing sites. So some of you may remember that we brought in a mobile testing site into Lake Zurich for several days because of an outbreak we had down there. We've also had the mobile site in North Chicago, Zion, Round Lake, as well as Mundelein. So, you know, there's a number of potential areas that people can get testing in Lake County.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I am going to go to Paul. Sorry. How is Lake County minimizing spending during these times? And that's a question from Kristen L.
Thank you, Kristen. Thanks, Chair, for the question. So our team, as far back as April, began to recognize that the economic impact of the crisis was going to impact revenue for the county government as well. And so we're, you know, at that point, almost halfway through the fiscal year, the operating budget, which was approved with no tax increase last year, we began to start to make reductions in ongoing spending with the partnership of all the departments across the county government and even the departments which are governed by independently elected countywide officers. They all came to the table with suggestions, offering reductions. You know, initially you start with reductions that do the sort of least harm in terms of your ability to deliver the services and programs. And as you get further down the road, you get towards things that are more painful. But no less than 3 times our board approved current operating year budget reductions, almost $20 million for the county's operating budget for 2020. We still are not entirely sure what the revenue picture will look like. You know, we're all basing this on estimates, and our CFO, Patrice, does a fantastic job of giving us the information available, helping us prepare, and helping us make decisions. And so we're in the process right now of getting ready to look at the budgetary decisions that we're going to have to make for 2021. Obviously, it's in some ways easier to reduce your spending when you have time ahead of you to make your plans. You know you have diminished revenue, so we're making those plans for reductions and rolling back, and in some cases postponing spending for some programs. So we're going to be making those decisions together as a board. We have budget hearings. The way that our budget hearing process works, again, open to the public, fully accessible. These are all of our subject matter committee hearings: Law and Judicial, Health, Community Services, Public Works and Transportation. Each one has a section of the budget, and the Finance Committee will meet together with them. And that happens in the third week in next month, in October. So we'll be having our budget hearings. So we'll be making decisions about what the county's 2021 budget will look like. And again, we're starting off from the goal of not having a property tax increase for the second year in a row, which is something the county hasn't done for a long time. It's even more difficult with the additional revenues that are decreasing, but that's the goal, and that's where we're starting, and it's what the board is interested in doing to see if we can get there. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Thank you. You actually answered two questions there, with your second one being about how is Lake County government taking a leadership role in enacting meaningful property tax reform. So thank you so much for speaking to that. I think that's something that our entire board is very proud of. Our budget did pass unanimously. I think we were really pleased to not increase taxes, as Chair Frank had said, in at least 20 years. So that was something we're really proud of. And I, from at least my perspective, really looking about how we are right-sizing government. What are those essential services that we're really providing? This is a time when we really need to be smart about our resources and understand that people are in very difficult times. So we're going to do, I know what we can to make a difference, as well as our staff is really looking at things differently. And one of the things that we're also doing is working with our municipality partners. Donnie Schmidt has been on this with us before. He is the president of the Lake County Municipal League, and we're really looking about where we can share services with other municipalities and government agencies to save money. So more on that, I'm sure. So thank you, Paul, for answering that question. I am going to go to Robin, and it's sort of a twist on what you had just spoken of. But I know a couple of years ago, and this is prior to Robin being in office, but a couple of years ago, a voting site ended up opening late because some election judges maybe hadn't gotten there in time. I don't know the details. So if something like that happens, well, maybe you could take us through that. How do you have enough election judges?
Mm-hmm.
How does that work?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do have enough election judges. It's not whether we have enough. We get a lot of people that want to be election judges, and we welcome them. But we also have to have them go through training. And this year we have a Zoom training and a hands-on training. And then we also have an assessment that also goes with that. So even with the primary, it was kind of a crazy time. If you remember, we had about 500 judges that called us up and was not allowed to serve. And so many of them, I agreed. I said, no, this is not where you should be. But we had a site that actually was not put together the night before. So when the next morning came, there was a little bit of, I guess people were really very surprised to find that that site was not even open yet. So here's an example of how we gathered some of our judges. And a lot of our judges are very experienced. We have site managers. We have individuals that know how to put together sites, and we communicate. They opened up the site, and here is what we say to people. We take pride in opening up every site with dignity, and we pay attention to all of the details, and we make sure that that site is going to work to the best that we expect for Lake County voting sites. So that Lake County site actually opened up 55 minutes after. So what we do is we have to go to a judge and explain that, and then get approval, get a court order from the judge that we can then continue that site and have it stay open 55 minutes later. Everything we do within Lake County, with elections and within our offices, all run by statutes and laws. And I always say that to individuals. We are the processors. We are the ones that have to take the situation, and we have to problem solve often, but we have to do everything with the law in mind. So when an election site has troubles, we have to step back and say, how are we going to correct this with the dignity of the office and uphold what we need to uphold as a voting site, and then we must do it according to law.
Perfect. Thank you, Robin.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, I've heard a few people ask this question just sort of in passing, but this one comes from James Freeman. And he says, in Lake County, roughly, or 0.07% of citizens have died from COVID-19. With such an extremely low rate, why do we still have restrictions?
Well, I think one of the things that let's just talk about who is dying, is that the majority of the people that are dying tend to be over the age of 60 and they have underlying conditions. And I think this is something that, as a society, we have to ask ourselves, how many deaths, should we have? And, is one death too many? And I say that it is. So anytime that we can prevent deaths, that's what we're really trying to do, is to prevent deaths. But generally in Lake County, we have about 4,500 deaths every year. So the statistic I gave earlier, we're about 10% higher than average. So we've had about 10% more deaths due to COVID-19 than on average. So again, I think this is just something that, as a society, we do know that younger people tend not to be hospitalized or die from the disease, but certainly people that are over the age of 60 with underlying conditions are having much greater problems. But the good news is that our long-term care facilities, that's where many of the deaths are linked to, is that infection control has really improved, that we're doing a great job with testing the staff that are potentially bringing COVID-19 into those facilities, and also just making sure that people are restricted from going into those facilities from bringing it in. So that has helped out a lot to reduce our deaths. So that's been very positive, is that the number of deaths have dropped off dramatically since June, because we're handling the COVID-19 pandemic better.
Perfect. Thank you. And then I'm going to come back to you, Mark, because most people do want to ask you questions, as is always the case. But I did hear from some Lake County employees. One question is, what measures is the board preparing to take in the near future to meet the budget shortfall? Will there be an early retirement option offered? How will COVID-19 impact Lake County tax returns and the 2021 budget? And what extraordinary measures will need to be taken? So I know that Paul had spoken to some of those things, but I guess I just want to reiterate, and this is something that Jim Hawkins, our deputy administrator, sometimes says. He says, we're kind of building a plane in the air in the fog, right? We're kind of building it as we go. We're taking as much data as we can find. We're very fortunate to have our CFO, Patrice Sutton, really leading us through this. And, little by little, we're getting more data, and that helps us get a better understanding. But I think, as Paul kind of spoke to, we're really figuring this out as we go. We're going to see what 2021 looks like. We're going to see if there's going to be more federal funding. We're going to see what winter looks like. So I would say there's probably nothing off the table at this point. And Paul, interject if you would like, but I think we're not sure what it's going to look like. But I know I feel very confident, fortunate to have a great staff who have just been dedicated to Lake County for several years, and they're kind of helping us through this. So Paul, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Chair. And one of the things, the tools that we have in terms of budget speaking is, it doesn't necessarily mean if you need to reduce headcount that you have to lose a person. Oftentimes there's an organization of this size, there's turnover. You can leave vacancies unfilled. It's one of the things that we're having to do. Oftentimes in some departments, we have vacancies that are on the books because the department wants to fill it in a future budget year when there's opportunity. And so by either taking them off the books or making sure that they remain unfilled is one of the things that we can do to relieve some of the budget pressure that we're forecasting And you're absolutely right, Chair. We don't know where things are going to go. We're, again, making our best projections in terms of revenue, in terms of where we're going to be with the crisis going forward. We even have some of the federal money set aside at the health department for an immunization program, if and when that becomes a reality, either for COVID or for flu or other immunization programs that are needed. But you know, the team at Lake County, they're incredible professionals. I'm immensely grateful for their service to the taxpayers of Lake County each and every day. And I think under crazy, unheard of circumstances, doing a phenomenal job on behalf of our community.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. Mark, I'm going to turn back to you. And I know you were doing some drive-through flu testing last week. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of getting a flu shot and sort of that mass vaccination that you're taking a look at, please?
Yeah, I'd love to. We are piloting, preparing for the mass vaccinations for COVID-19. We actually did a test of drive-through flu vaccinations, and it went extremely well. And so what we were doing was testing our throughput. How fast could we get individuals through our lines? And we were averaging about 4 minutes per car, you know, with a single individual or 2 individuals max at that time. So we're really going to perfect that mechanism. We're hopeful that the COVID-19 vaccine is going to be coming out sometime in 2021. There's been a lot of discussion about it coming out earlier, but the general public, even if it does come out, there's not going to be enough vaccine to start pushing it out to the general public. So we're really planning for COVID-19 vaccinations in the spring to June of 2021. So that's what we're looking at. But Chair, I think flu shots is extremely important, and we're really pushing out for everybody in Lake County that's over the age of 6 months to get your flu shot. One of the things that we definitely don't want is that if COVID-19 cases increase, is inundating our hospitals with both COVID-19 and influenza. So it's extremely important for everybody to get the flu shot. And as Hannah, my communications person, always hears me say, is that a lot of people complain to me and say, well, Mark, the flu shot's only on average about 50% effective. And I always respond by saying, if you don't get the flu shot, it's 100% ineffective. So I'd rather go with 50% rather than 100% ineffective. So please, everybody, get your flu shot.
Perfect. Thank you very much. This has been, let's see, Josh Elder asked this question. I know it's been coming through in the chat too. Is COVID transferable by air and surfaces? I used to clean my groceries when I brought them home. Do I still need to do that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Is that, you know, the virus, what we know about it now is that it's definitely being transmitted through respiratory means. And so when we talk about respiratory, is that the reason why we use 6 feet as the distance we want everybody to be away from each other is generally when people sneeze or cough or talk, that those respiratory droplets are traveling up to about 6 feet. And so definitely that's why we want people to watch their distance. If it is more airborne or aerosolized, is that it doesn't really change what we're already saying. We want people to social distance, wear a mask, and wash their hands. And generally what we're finding with this virus is that while it could be cause of contamination if you're picking it up off a table or off a doorknob, but you have to touch your face or your other extremities to bring it into your mucous membranes. So that's why we want you to wash your hands, is that just in case you do touch the virus, it is viable, you've washed your hands, and that'll effectively take care of that. But the majority of the cases that are found throughout the world have been transmitted through respiratory means.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, I show that it is 8 o'clock, and I know everybody's been working many hours, so I'm going to start to close up, but I do want to ask one question, and I'm going to ask this question of Mark. Let me see. The individual asked the question about what towns in Lake County are driving the majority of cases, but I'm going to add in the why. So, and could you tell us why that's happening, Mark, please?
Yeah, I think this is another great question, and you can find the data out on our data hub, and you can see what has been the prevalence, you know, by municipality. So you can see the different shades. you can see what the number of cases are per, 100,000, and you get the gradation of what's going on out there. But I think we all have to remember is that, we have different people that live in Lake County, and their exposures are very different. And so you probably remember the term that we were using very frequently during the spring. We had people that we were calling essential workers. Those were the people that were having to come in and go to work every day, that they were working at factories, they were working at different service areas, they were working at grocery stores. Those were individuals that were more apt to be exposed. And a lot of those individuals may live in municipalities that are home to individuals that are essential workers. So that's why we saw the largest number of cases, happening in Waukegan, Round Lake, Mundelein, and those areas tended to be the ones that had very large Latinx populations. And so we were seeing great disparities between the number of people that were positive that were Latinx. They were about 9 times more, had higher potential or cases age adjusted. African Americans had about 4 times the cases as whites. And then, this is where we were seeing really those locations that had essential workers. And in the beginning, actually, Chair Hart and Paul Frank are on here today, that we really saw the epicenter, the start of COVID-19 happening in the southeastern part of the county, because we had people that had traveled abroad and came back to their hometowns. So at first, we were seeing the highest number of cases in the southeast, but now COVID-19 is endemic. It is everywhere throughout Lake County. And so, you can't travel anywhere in Lake County and not potentially be exposed. So, but please take a look at our data hub.
Perfect. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Mark. I think that's really important to understand that it is our essential workers who are enabling us to get to work from home for those of us who are able to do so. So they're really putting their life on the line and the life of their families. They don't potentially have the choices that many of us do. So thank you for speaking to that, Mark. So I want to say thank you so much to the panelists. I want to say thank you to Sylvia Escarcega, if I'm saying that correctly, who has been providing this overview in Spanish. We're very grateful to her. And really, I'd heard, I think it was late last week, some families were losing power. They were getting, their electricity was being disconnected due to lack of payment. And so we had heard from the state that people shouldn't be losing electricity. Kids working from home, trying to learn, and hopefully you guys can hear me. It says my internet is unstable. But if anybody is running into that or knowing somebody who is having difficulty with their utilities, they can call 1-800-EDISON-1 and they can get on that payment plan. So that's 1-800-EDISON-1. And also, if anybody needs help in general, we're very fortunate to have a 211 system through the United Way of Lake County. I'm very proud of it. Lake County helped to fund that and get that off the ground. So if anybody needs help with anything, please do dial 211. We know there are many people struggling right now with mental health needs, anxiety, depression. It's a scary time for many people. This is Suicide Awareness Month as well. So please, if you or someone you love or someone you know is in need of help, please do 211 and get the help you need. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you so much to my fellow panelists who work really hard every day, and there's a whole crew in the background. There's Alex Carr and Hannah and Aaron and so many others putting this together. And I just want to say how great to all of you for being part of this and really helping our residents answer the questions they need to have answers to. So thanks so much, and I hope everybody stays safe and stays healthy and remote. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Hey, Lake County, you can't choose to vote early. Hey, Lake County, you can't choose to vote by mail. choose to vote on Election Day, vote early or vote by mail. Remember, it's your vote, your voice, your choice. Hey, Lake County, you can choose to vote early. Hey, Lake County, you can choose to vote.